Good morning. Welcome to your Wednesday morning, early morning intuitive guidance. I'm Dr. Bonnie Nussbaum. Here are some words of wisdom for your day. And we have some wonderful words of wisdom today that I think will give us all grist for our mill in terms of communication. So let's just take a couple of nice deep breaths, settling into, good morning to whomever just popped on. Glad you are here. Settling into an open space. Good morning, Carolyn. Glad you are here. You're the first one today. Welcome, welcome. So we're just going to settle ourselves into a space of openness, receptivity. Good morning, Gwen. Welcome. Glad you're here. Just putting ourselves in the mindset to soak up the words that are so amazing today with regard to communication, especially difficult communication. So I can't wait to read this section to you and see what your thoughts are on it. Because for me, it was like, ooh, that really is helpful. That really is productive and useful in terms of the hows. Because we oftentimes know we want to make changes to how we communicate with people, especially when those communications are difficult or painful, but we don't know the how. So this is going to give us some of the hows. So some nice deep belly breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Good morning, Linda. Welcome. In through the nose. Good morning, Cindy. Out through the mouth. Just settling into right here, right now. Good morning, Beth. Welcome. Fully inhabiting your body. Grounding yourself into your body. That actually is something that I'm practicing more now. I've added it to my morning routine, in fact. So in addition to doing YEMIG, in addition to my meditation and my journaling and my breathing and all that stuff, I've now added grounding. Some of those things. Good morning, Janine. Good morning, good morning. Glad you're all here. And know that because you're here, you are the ones who are meant to soak up this message. Hopefully there's some piece of this message that you go, ooh, that's really good, and I want to share that with so-and-so. And you spread this message on. Because the more of us who can take the war out of our words and communicate in a powerful, non-defensive way, thank you, Sharon Ellison, the better. The better. And again, her premise is that the English language is a warlike language and that we need to practice removing that energy from our words such that it neutralizes communication more. It isn't this provocative, baiting kind of communication that the English language inherently holds. Okay? So, the page that we are on, because I know some of you have the book, is 225. And the section, there's 3 sections I'm going to read. I'll read you the titles first so you can kind of be cogitating on that on your own. And then we'll hit the information that's in each of those sections. But the first one is acknowledging our own accountability. Ouch. Owning our crap. Okay? Acknowledging our own accountability. Respecting the other person's right to refuse. So if someone doesn't want to communicate with us, that is absolutely their option. Respecting the other person's right to refuse. And then the last section is maintaining a non-defensive posture in the face of all that other stuff. Okay? So oftentimes when I'm working with people on this, especially if I'm working with marital couples, they'll hang on to the gist of it for a bit and then they slide down into the crap again. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. This is practice. So it's going to take some more practice to get it to the sticking point to where you can stay in your alignment even in the face of negativity, even in the face of baiting, even in the face of refusal to cooperate. All that stuff, you still stand your ground, stay focused, stay calm, etc., etc. How successful we feel. Good morning, Tira. Glad you are here. How successful we feel when we've managed to stay true to ourselves in a difficult communication. And again, it's not about one-upping that other person. That's not it at all. That's not the energy we're wanting to cultivate. The energy we're wanting to cultivate is I've maintained myself. I've stayed true to myself, regardless of what the other person's saying, doing, etc. I stayed centered. I stayed calm. I did my predictions very directly, etc. So there's a couple of stories in here that I think are also helpful in terms of getting the point across. But let's know that we are starting with acknowledging our own accountability. And again, this is Taking the War Out of Our Words, The Art of Powerful Non-Defensive Communication by Sharon Ellison, that we've been working our way through for probably most of the year, a little bit here, a little bit there. So this section, I really appreciate her words, and I hope they strike you as helpful also. Acknowledging our own accountability. Another tough challenge for many of us is to openly acknowledge our own accountability. Holding others accountable, regardless of whether or not the other person acknowledges any responsibility, requires us to keep focused on our own non-defensive philosophy and values. So again, we stay true to ourselves. So here's a story that I think every one of us is going to be able to relate to. And I love how he manages it. All right. Phil told me about a situation where some fellow members of an organization were doing things he regarded as unethical. Good morning, Jobel. Glad you are here. He felt disturbed about the course they were creating for the organization. While talking with one of the men during a meeting, he asked questions in a tone he realized was accusatory. How many of us have done that? Why did you do that? Okay. He thereupon apologized for his tone, only to have the other man respond condescendingly and without acknowledging any responsibility for his own actions. Phil found it very hard to apologize for asking an accusatory question. It seemed minor compared to some of the other person's violations. He found it even more difficult to sit there and not try to get the other guy to admit anything. You know that you're, pushing, right? After inwardly railing against himself, he almost believed he was weakening his position. He realized he didn't have to maintain a martyred silence. Any of the rest of you good at martyred silences? I'll put myself in that court. He could continue with his own statement and predictions. What he said was this: your response feels condescending to me, as if I made a major error and you made none. My apology is for my own defensiveness, and it doesn't change my viewpoint. In fact, it was hard to acknowledge or hard to apologize for asking an accusatory question when that feels small to me in comparison to some of the things you and others have done, which I believe are unethical. So here comes the prediction. You ready? If you are not willing to change your course of action, I will ask that the board investigate this issue. So there's the if then. If you do this, I will do that. Okay? And remember, we could have added on the other piece of this too, which is we want to predict as many options as we see. If you do A, I will do B. Good morning, Donine. Glad you are here. If you do C, I will do D. And if you do E, I will do F. Just laying them all out so that all of the options that you can conceive of are on the table. They may come up with other options. That's okay. Then the conversation can continue. But in this case, he's saying, if you are not willing to change your course of action, I will ask that the board investigate this issue. Holding ourselves accountable, especially when someone else denies being part of the problem, can be a stretch. No kidding, right? Yet when we do so, we often gain rather than lose. By being accountable for his own defensive behavior and then continuing his efforts to deal with the issue non-defensively, Phil added to his strength rather than diminishing it. After witnessing this conversation, 2 other people who had been fence-sitting requested that the course of action be changed. So because he was brave and stood up and spoke his truth, even in the face of resistance, things headed a direction that was going to be healthier and better for all. Okay? So that's the first section. Here's the second section. Respecting the other person's right to refuse. This is so hard, right? As we build our non-defensive frame of reference, we should also be mentally and emotionally prepared to accept another person's resistance to giving us information or hearing our feedback. But I will put a caveat in there. Oftentimes, if we allow it to just be then what it is, they can go away, think about it, and they may come back. They may come back and say, I thought about that, you're right, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Give it some space. Give it some air. Ventilate it, as Pema Chodron would say. Breathe on it. All right? When we ask non-defensive questions, we are asking for the other person's willing participation. We are not attempting coercion. And I'm sorry, most of us were trained as kids from our parents to do the coercive thing. If you do this, I'm going to do that. That sort of thing. And that's not what this is. This is neutral. If you do A, I will do B. If you do C, I will do D. All of those being viable options in your mind. You're not pushing for a certain outcome. All right? Hard to do. Likewise, if we make an observation about how we perceive someone's body language or motivation, remember we had those sections earlier, and the person says, I don't need your feedback, thanks anyway, then it becomes invasive to continue. A closed mind does not hear. I'll repeat that. A closed mind does not hear. I believe that in order to remain non-defensive in such cases, we must not pursue any attempt to have the person give or receive information. Okay? At that point, we need to let it go. It doesn't mean we're giving up. It means we're letting it go. All right? There's a difference. It's the same difference between surrender and giving up. Surrender is you put the paddle in the boat and you allow the river to take you where you're going. Giving up is you jump in the water and you drown. They are different. Okay? Let's see. I'm going to repeat that sentence and then continue. I believe that in order to remain non-defensive in such cases, we must not pursue any attempt to have the person give or receive information. I have found this is very hard, but vital for people to learn. Forcing a person to give or receive information can be a psychological assault. Trying to draw out information a person wants to keep carries the energy of theft. Trying to force feed a person with unwanted information carries the energy of rape. Non-tangible violations have power, just as tangible ones do. And oftentimes, words hurt, right? Words can be intrusive. Words can do many things that we're working through this book to change, right? If someone does not want to give or receive information, the alternative to trying to force a continued conversation is simply to make a prediction. Okay, so there's the how, and I'll read a little more in a minute, but oftentimes we think, well, I don't know what else to do. If I don't get this answer, I don't know what to do. I'm dead in the water, right? We all believe that. Here we go. With the prediction, the other person chooses whether or not to hear us. We simply forecast our own intentions. We put on record how we will respond to each of the other person's possible choices. Again, okay, so I'm sensing you don't want to talk about this. Just know, if you do A, I will do B, and if you do C, I will do D. Enough said. And you go on with something else, right? This is as useful in volatile situations, like someone refusing to discuss their alcoholism, as it is with lesser annoyances, disclosing the cause of a bad mood. Remember, we had that vignette kind of coming through the book where the husband would often be in a bad mood and the wife would be doing a song and dance and walking on eggshells and trying to figure out why he was upset and blah, blah, blah. Back off. Back off. If you are upset, I'm going to remove myself from the situation because I don't know what it's about and I can't do anything to help you. If you choose to talk to me about what you're upset about, we can continue being in the same room. Prediction, okay? So that's the respecting the other person's right to refuse conversation part. Here's the third part. Maintaining a non-defensive posture. How do we hang on to that posture in the face of these kinds of stonewalling? All right? It is still possible to start out non-defensively, but at some point slide back into defensiveness. Anybody else recognize this? Yep. Especially when the other person maintains invested in the power struggle. A key factor is maintaining a non-defensive posture when someone is still trying to draw you into conflict is to be very clear that you are doing this for yourself, okay? This is you taking care of you, staying in the non-defensive posture. So you can become a more open, direct, and competent person, all right? This is merely the playing field on which that is playing out, all right? It's merely your opportunity. So detach somewhat from that the dynamics of it, what it all is. You know, I'm fighting with my sister. She always lights me up like a Christmas tree. Okay, detach from that. This is merely an opportunity for me to practice my non-defensive skills so I can become a happier, more competent person. All right? So you want to be clear on that. Though you might also be motivated to provide a model for your children or to be more compassionate toward others, the primary goal of non-defensive attitude is to develop your own character and strength. And again, when you model this, when you do this, it really is exceptional for others to view. Again, I remember some of the watching Nelson Mandela. What a prime example of this, staying non-defensive in some very difficult situations. Barack Obama, there was that town hall meeting where this guy just kept asking these baiting questions, and but Obama was very direct in answering them, just, you know, put it out there, and then moved on, He did not rise to the bait. So important. I think keeping this goal fresh in our minds is essential. So if you're going to go into a conversation, sometimes, like if it's a phone conversation, that actually can be helpful because you can have a little note card beside you with this written on there. My goal here is to remain non-defensive. My goal here is to grow my skills and my character. My goal is not to manipulate them into believing what I believe. Put it right in front of you so you've got it there to reference. Then as you're having the conversation, when you're about to go there, take a moment. Hang on a minute, let me think about that, and then I'll give you my answer. Fine to say that. Buy yourself some time so you can have the dialogue in your head with the part of you that's wanting to fight and just say, no, we are going to remain non-defensive. We are going to do this with grace and finesse, etc. Although talking non-defensively is often disarming, others sometimes do respond by trying harder to pull us into the power struggle. So Harry says, what do you mean when you say, and then he's about to feed back something that he heard from Arnie, and Arnie says, you know what I mean. Harry, now hooked into raising his voice, if I knew, I wouldn't have asked the question. Anybody else had this conversation repeatedly? Okay, so let's go back. If Harry says, what do you mean when you say? And Arnie says, you know what I mean. Harry could say, I sense you're getting upset. I merely want clarification. Stays as calm as possible. If you continue to escalate, I'm probably going to stop the conversation. If you're willing to lower your voice to normal, we can continue. You just lay it out. Just lay it out. And again, Arnie may snap back with something else. That kind of sends you the message this is not going where it's going to be healthy for it to go. Then he can say, this isn't going well. Let's take a pause. We'll come back to it later. I'll check in with you in an hour and see where you're at. Something along that line. So now we got another section here. Hang on. And I'm sure this stuff is chiming for you guys, right? Because it certainly chimes for me. These are the kinds of conversations we slide into without wanting to. A person may directly attack the way we are communicating by accusing us of trying some new technique, engaging in psychobabble, or attempting psychoanalysis. My ex-husband used to say that all the time. Stop psychoanalyzing me. And I'm like, I get paid for those skills, dude. I'm not psychoanalyzing. I'm just attempting to understand where you're coming from. All right. When others increase their efforts to knock us off our non-defensive stance, we can be pushed to the edge and may fall, thinking on the way down, well, I tried and it didn't work. But if we focus intently on maintaining our own process, we do not have to give up just because someone else wants us to. All right? We're only responsible for our portion of the conversation. Our portion of the conversation is going to influence the other person's portion of the conversation, hopefully, and hopefully in a positive way. But again, all we have control over is what comes out of our mouth. And I know some of you are going to say, I don't got too much control over that. Practice, practice, practice. I am a firm fan of removing yourself from a situation. If you can't maintain your non-defensive stance, I need to take a 5-minute break and then I'll be right back. Go. They may accuse you, stop running away from me. Don't you leave this conversation. Go anyway. Close the bathroom door, turn the fan on, look at yourself in the mirror, have a conversation. Okay, my goal is to stay non-defensive. I can go down the same rabbit hole I always go down. That doesn't serve me and it doesn't serve us and our relationship. Therefore, I'm going to stay non-defensive. All right? Then head back out when you're ready. Take another whack at it. All right? Okay. We can prepare ourselves to continue with neutral questions, statements, or predictions. So I'm going to give you 4 options here. She's got 4 options that I think are good ones that you can memorize. Memorize an option. That's okay. That's cool. Because you're building a new skill. We have to practice. If you were learning a new language, you'd have to memorize some stuff, right? If you were changing your tennis swing, you're going to have to practice, right? Same thing here. So here's some options. Would you like to know why I asked you? So if the accusatory stuff starts flying back at you very directly and openly and neutrally, would you like to know why I asked you? No, I don't need to know. I know why you're asking me. You want to pin me against the wall. You think I'm wrong, blah, 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 whatever they're going to say. Well, that's not why I asked you, but if you'd like to know why I asked you, I can certainly tell you. We all need a ton more practice, Gwen. You are absolutely true. This is hard stuff. This is hard stuff, especially when it's with people we've had these dynamics for years with, and we've practiced and practiced and practiced the crappy dynamics. It's going to take some time and effort to get the new dynamics working for us, all right? So this is our call to practice. This is our call to practice. Would you like to know why I asked you? Another question is, are you willing to answer my question or would you rather not? Are you willing to answer my question or would you rather not? And either of those options being acceptable. Yes, we would love to have them answer our question and we can keep going. Absolutely harder with friends than others because they know our weak points. They know exactly which button to push to get a particular response. So my vending machine analogy, I'm going to trot it out again. You are a vending machine. The family member walks up, puts the money in, pushes the button, expects a response. Just like clockwork. Walk up to the machine, put the money in, press the button, get the response. Now, they walk up to you, the machine, they put the money in, they press the button, and you've changed your response. You give a non-defensive response. They don't know what to do with that. So what do they do with the machine? They bang on the buttons, they wiggle the coin return, they shake the machine. They escalate their response. Not uncommon at all. Predictable. Tell yourself that. This is predictable. They're going to escalate. When I respond differently than what they're used to, they're going to escalate to try to pop me back into my old behavior. When it escalates, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make my prediction. If you continue to go down this old road of communicating, I'm going to remove myself from the communication. If you continue to push and bait me, I'm going to stop talking about this. We'll have to take a break. Just very directly, okay? So the second one is, are you willing to answer my question or would you rather not? If they say I'd rather not, then you say okay and you go do something else, all right? Good, I'm glad this is helpful. I find it very helpful too. I love that she puts the stories in there. That makes it so much easier when she gives us examples, all right? So here's the third question. I won't be able to tell you what I think until I understand what you mean. So I won't be able to tell you what I think until I understand what you mean. I can't respond to your statement or your question when I'm not quite sure what you mean. I don't want to give you an answer that is not accurate, so I need more understanding. All right? Yes, mature adulting, absolutely. It ain't for the weak-hearted, right? And the last one is, if you don't want to answer me, then I'd rather not continue this part of our conversation right now. If you don't want to answer me, I'd rather not continue this part of our conversation right now. And you can put the other, when you are ready to answer me, come and find me. Again, as neutrally as possible. Is this easy? No, it's not easy at all. But if it weren't a challenge, I don't know, we wouldn't be growing and learning, right? So, the process we use determines the outcome. If we give in to people's demands and then gossip about them, we become a passive-aggressive person. If we defend ourselves by blaming others, we become an aggressive person who is intimidating, even though we may feel intimidated ourselves. A client of mine once rolled her eyes, sighed, grimaced, and shook her shoulders with a kind of disgust as she declared, "I don't even want to bother telling him how I feel." I asked her, "Do you want to become a person who rolls her eyes, sighs, and doesn't even care whether she communicates clearly?" She looked at me startled out of her dramatic posturing. Often we forget that how we communicate does more to shape our own lives than it does anyone else's. Yep. I want to emphasize again that if we stay focused on our own non-defensive process, there is no way for us to fail, regardless of how the other person responds. So even if it goes horrendously, but you stay centered and you stay calm and you remove yourself when you can tell it's really going south. Good morning, Pat. Glad you're here. You've won. Not won. You've done well. We don't want win and lose here. We don't want win and lose. And we talked about that previously, right? Where if we feel like, well, there, I showed him or I told him or I whatever, we've turned it into that game. Yeah, stop psychoanalyzing me. Yeah, to shut you down. Because many things that we may ask may be uncomfortable. I was on a call last night, though. It's a 5-week community organizing class. And they were talking about us being curious and courageous. That if we are going to be doing a one-on-one with somebody, if we're going to be talking to somebody about their passions and sharing our passions, being curious and courageous. The courageous part being asking the hard questions. The person has the right to say no. And when we were practicing on the Zoom, the woman I was paired up with, I asked a courageous question and she said, "I don't want to talk about that." And I said, "Absolutely fine. Wonderful. Thank you for telling me." And we went a different direction. I think she thought I was going to get pissy about her not wanting to talk about it. No. She set a boundary. She also implied through some of her other conversation with me that she's been a heavily wounded person. So for her to set a boundary, amen and hallelujah. That's fabulous. That is a great thing. And I wanted to reinforce that and encourage that. All right? We can strengthen our own confidence and self-esteem by maintaining our own clarity and not getting drawn into the power struggle. We can walk away with a sense of integrity and dignity no matter what challenge we have faced. So here are her steps for creating the predisposition of non-defensiveness. So these might be great to write down also. Have them on a little note card where you're going to, when you're going to have one of these conversations, you're going to assume this predisposition first. You ready? Good morning, Diane. Glad you are here. Slow down. Because the faster we move, the more likely we are to fall back into the old behaviors. All of a sudden, we're sliding down the slope of being defensive with the other person. Slow down. Monitor your own intentions. Why am I doing this? Good morning, Lucy. Welcome. Why am I saying this? What's my purpose for these next words that are going to come out of my mouth? Oftentimes you're going to find that it's things like, I'm trying to one-up him, or I'm trying to make my point, I'm trying to get my point across, I'm trying to manipulate him or her into responding in a certain way. Own your stuff. We all need to own our stuff. Yeah, I'm getting manipulative here. I need to take a step back. All right? Avoid predetermining whether or not the other person will remain defensive. We're not in their skin, and I don't care if you've been married to them for 50 years. You can't always predict a response. So don't assume that the person you're talking to is going to stay defensive or get defensive. Assume the best and then deal with whatever comes up. All right? Be willing to become more direct and vulnerable. So when Phil apologized to the other guy for being accusatory, that was him being willing to expose some of himself, to show the guy, yeah, this poked my buttons, I'm riled up about it, and owning his stuff. Okay, I don't want to be accusatory. I want to make this statement as neutrally as possible. If you do A, I will do B. If you do C, I will do D. Just as clear as you can, right? Cultivate openness to hearing the perceptions of others. I always love it when I'm working with people and we get to the point where they're both heightened and they're yelling at each other, and one says, well, you said blah, blah, and the other person says, no, I didn't. I never said that. And I'm there. I've heard what was said, and I can say, that's not exactly what was said. I can see how you might have perceived it that way. Will you repeat what was actually said at that point? And I can work them through that reactivity, okay? Because oftentimes we don't hear what was said. We hear what we think was said, all right? And we can do clarification on that. Okay, I'm hearing you say blah, blah. Is that accurate? And it may not be. And don't be surprised if it's not, okay? Hold yourself accountable regardless of what the other person does. So again, in Phil's case, he held himself accountable in front of the entire group for having been accusatory. The other guy had none of it. He was still locked in that position of defensiveness. Doesn't matter. Phil still said yes, absolutely. Very difficult with anybody, but particularly with a narcissist. Someone who has narcissistic tendencies. I don't like putting labels on people, okay? But work with that anyway. View it as just a higher order challenge for you to stay in non-defensiveness. And again, if you're feeling like you're moving forward with that conversation and that person is still gathering information to use against you, baiting you into a response so you're the bad guy, blah, 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 step out of the conversation. Okay, I'm done talking about this now. I'm going to walk away. If you feel like you're ready to talk about it in a more neutral fashion, come and find me. All right? Don't be willing to be dragged down that rabbit hole. Do not go there. You get to decide for you. All right? Accept that someone may not want to give or receive information. Okay, I'm sensing that you're not willing to hear this at this point. So if you do A, I will do B. If you do C, I will do D. Let me know if you have any questions. Walk away. You're done. You're done. You're done. You're done. Don't beat the dead horse. Okay? Waste your energy. Waste your energy. Maintain a non-defensive posture in the face of continued defensiveness. And again, all you're responsible for is your reactions, okay? And if you walk away and you feel like, okay, I really screwed that up, I slid into the defensiveness again, don't beat yourself up. Be kind and loving with yourself about this. This is hard work. This is new stuff. This is going to take time and practice. So then rehearse in your mind. What I could have said was, or what I could have done was, rehearse, 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 see it in your mind's eye. Later, when there's another opportunity, pull on that practice. So, I hope there was some useful stuff in here. If you found particular aspects of it useful, please put them in the feed. Please reinforce for yourself what was useful. Please reinforce for the rest of us what was useful for you. Because then we can practice together and move forward. And so I'm going to suggest, as you put comments in the feed, today, other days, doesn't matter. If there's some of that defensive stuff in there, I will use that as an opportunity for us to practice. We all have this. We all do this. Nobody's a bad guy here. We're going to use the grist for our mill to make some changes, to learn some new things. So I might say to you, so if you put something out there, let's say you put the eye roll out there of, I'm not wasting my time talking to my family anymore. I might say to you, do you want to be the person who refuses to communicate with family? Do you want to be that person? If you say yes, fine, we're going to let it go. If you say no, but I don't know what else to do, then we can do some problem solving. We can pull up some of these non-defensive communication things. When you say that to me in that way, I feel because, and so if you do this, I will do that. And if you do this, I will do that. And if you do this, I'm going to walk away and we can take another shot at it later. With my kids, oftentimes I would say, because they're tired, they're obnoxious, they're kids, right? They're 30 something now. But when they were younger, especially tweens and teens, my daughter, the head swiveled, the pea soup came out. I would say to her, okay, this isn't going well right now. We're going to take a time out. We're going to take a break. And then you'll have another chance to take a whack at it. And I'd walk away. She's not bad. She's not terrible. She's not horrible. She's just being an adolescent. And I needed to have the grip on myself as a parent. And this is not acceptable. When you're ready to talk about this in a clear way, we can go at it. Okay, thank you. Monitoring your own intentions and having a practiced response when things escalate is helpful. And you know the patterns, right? You know the patterns. You get that feeling. For me, the feeling is where I'm going there. I can feel I'm going there. So I can practice ahead of time having a response. Okay, she just poked that button again. I need to take a step back. I need to not just go there. If I go there, I'm sorry I was defensive. Give me a minute here. Let me get a grip. We'll take another whack at it. Put it out there, all right? We've got practicing to do. So all of us, that's my call to action for all of us today. Get some practice. Get some practice. If you're not going to interact with any of the people that typically push your buttons today, at least think of a recent opportunity where maybe you didn't react exactly as you wish you could have. I agree. Examples are very helpful. And replay it in your mind. What could I have done differently in that circumstance? Practice it, all right? Rehearse, rehearse, rehearse. Another opportunity will present itself, won't it? Have an awesome Wednesday. We'll see you again tomorrow. Remember, you're capable of far more than you think you are. Bye-bye.